Hey, great. How are you?
Excellent. Thanks for joining today. And everybody that's watching live, thank you so much. This is episode 122 of Tech Sales Insights, always brought to you by Sales Community. For those that are members, thank you very much. For those that are not, Tucker will probably put the free link on there. Feel free to join. Lots of great content if you want to learn more and sell more. And we're sponsored today by Phone Ready Leads, really, really cool company. So on the one hand, cold calling. I don't know if the caveman did cold calling, but probably some degree, but certainly a function that's been around and absolutely vital. So they can improve the cold calling hit rate by 5x. They've got a secret sauce to tell who is most likely to answer the calls and avoid wasted dials. And unlike some other companies, there's no compliance issues and you don't have to add more technology. So if you can improve the hit rate by 5x, kind of a no-brainer, right, Gabe?
Yeah, definitely.
And I've known Gabe kind of truthfully, only unlike some guests, only kind of recently, probably within the past year. He's the founder and CEO of FieldPulse, a really cool company in the field service software business, and have definitely been really impressed with how he's grown it, raising money and some other things there as well. Gabe lives in Dallas, and I'm sure this will be a great podcast. So thanks again for joining, Gabe.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome. And as always, we got Tucker behind the scenes helping. So Tucker, thank you so much. So why don't we jump in here? So maybe tell us, what was your first job after graduating from SMU?
Yeah, sure. So my first job out of school was at Accenture doing IT consulting. So I started there in kind of more generic group, and then I ended up migrating into the mobility group at Accenture, which deals with IoT, but also mobile applications, mostly enterprise, but I was actually specifically staffed at a large company that had small business offerings. And so small business software, mobile applications in various fields. And that's where I kind of saw the opportunity with FieldPulse, where there's a gap and there wasn't a great solution for small field service companies and service contractors to run their business. But yeah, IT background, and have always wanted to start a company. And then when the two aligned and kind of experience with different service contractors outside of that, I decided to leave and start FieldPulse.
Wow. I mean, talk about hopefully I'm not offending anybody, but kind of a blue collar business. So how the heck would you ever figure out to say that? I mean, it's an awesome niche, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But how did you ever figure out to go after that niche of customers? Yeah,
I think it's an interesting aspect or point, and I think that's one of the reasons it was so underserved compared to other industries. Is that when people make software, a lot of time they make it obviously for what they know extremely well, which makes sense. But that means that there's not much software out there for less IT focused fields. There's a lot of software created focused towards other software companies, SaaS, right? Right. Because that's where people have their experience in, and they find their pain points and build something towards it. But there's also a lot of opportunities in industries that don't have that. And specifically, I had experience dealing with different service contractors in different industries. They weren't using technology, and they were making different mistakes in different ways. And I had experience doing it from the IT side at Accenture in some similar capacities, some unrelated capacities. But I decided to bring the two together, and it required a lot of learning ultimately. So when I look at it, you can either have domain expertise, the software and technology expertise, or both if you're especially lucky in getting the two aligned. But if I were to pick one or the other, I think as a software company, you want to really nail the software aspect, and you can learn the domain side. And that's kind of the model that I took.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're kind of like a mini Oracle or SAP ERP playing in that field service client space.
Yeah. So, interestingly, really my first experience with kind of product design and scoping and implementation and all that was uh, ServiceNow, which is unrelated to what I do. Even though it has service in the name, it's really an ITIL and IT service management
Yeah.
platform,
Great,
and now
great,
it really does
great company.
everything. Yeah, yeah, it is a huge now. And this was what, 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. But that's where I started a lot of my kind of product background initially.
Yeah.
And then I moved on from that, but that's where it started off. And so a lot of it was just the product expertise, designing, specing, requirements, running development, where I kind of led into this.
Oh, awesome. There was some advisory board members for sales community from there. I'm going to forget some of them, but Kevin Haverty, Tom Hannigan, Mika Eads, and others. Definitely great company. It's really grown like crazy. So within kind of the niche of what you do, I would imagine what I know for my landscaping company back in Massachusetts, Doug, if he's listening, but kind of the billing, right? So, I mean, sure, from a value prop perspective, like, oh, I don't want to automate. It's a pain in the ass. It's going to be costly. But I would imagine, just from a billing perspective, right? Ability to get bills out and actually get paid or get paid faster. That's got to be one of the huge value props, and probably some others, right?
Yeah, so we are field service management for small service contractors. So think of electricians, plumbers, HVAC, garage door, handyman, landscaping. Really, there's a huge spectrum. We have a more of a core focus on what we call the service contractor and pure service business. But we get a wide range, and our software does everything from their scheduling, estimates, invoices, billing, timesheets, asset management, maintenance agreements, customer booking portals, sales tools, really a ton of stuff across the board, really an all-in-one system to manage their business.
Wow.
And for us, when we look at it, from them moving from pen and paper to this, obviously I'm biased, but the value is extraordinary, right? As you can imagine. Just the example you gave where they're missing a single invoice can often pay for itself.
Yeah.
And we're kind of mid-priced in the market, but I think we could be charging 10 times as much and people would still be getting tremendous value out of it. I don't think we'll do that, but I just think that's the amount of value you get out of it. And that's in every segment, right? When you look at
Yeah.
just the scheduling portion, how they deal with customers, their communications, not missing appointments, optimizing their schedule so they can get more done in a day. Just that module pays for itself many times over. And then you go to quoting, then you go to invoicing, then you go to the billing and the timesheets. Every module in itself provides tremendous value to where ultimately really across the board. So.
Wow. So how do you do that, right? So a lot of tech sales companies are somewhat sophisticated in that kind of value selling model. So on the one hand, you have your pricing, but it sounds like you've got opportunities where you can really improve to say by spending X, here's a return that you're actually going to get, and in fact, you can raise your prices properly.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because I think some people who are coming in immediately get it, right? They don't even need to be sold on the value prop. And we have a lot of people saying, hey, I need a field service management tool. Now I'm deciding which one. And so some of it is selling on why there's more value out of FieldPulse. And sometimes it's also why you get value out of de-risking by using a platform like FieldPulse versus someone else because of how we do implementation, how we get people signed up. And I think that's a hidden value that people maybe don't always sell on that can be powerful as well, because sometimes people think about, okay, the value is how much more money can I make or how much money can I save? But what people also think about is what is the risk of doing this? What if it goes wrong? I'm wasting tons of time, effort, ultimately money again by implementing it. But and de-risking that is also part of the value prop for us. And that's for people who get it. And then for those who don't, people on our team have, I guess, different tactics of how we showcase the value. Sometimes I hear they ask them, okay, you bill at X hour X dollars per hour, right?
Yeah.
Their billing rate. And it could be $125, $150 an hour for a lot of these trades. And they say, okay, if this can help you save
Right.
10 hours a week, look how much money you're saving. And that was one very direct way to quantify it.
Yeah.
The other,
Sorry. So I guess my point is though, but it sounds like you can actually increase your prices. So you have so many great value props. You don't have to answer the question, but I'm saying I would think there's where you can probably, raise your prices, right?
No, definitely. So our market's a bit interesting. So we have players that are cheaper than us. But for us, the way we look at them, they play a little bit of a different ball game where they kind of have a very transactional approach, get people on easy, sign them up, self-service, get going. We're a little bit different where we spend a bit more time with the customer, getting them properly implemented and onboarded. So we're more expensive than them. But we also have competitors that are literally 4 to 5 times the price point of us, which is awesome for us because the reality is that people are buying them at that price point and finding significant value. And that competitor in particular was last valued, I think, at $8 or $9 billion. So a large company now. And they've done tremendous. They've had huge success, and they're able to command such a high price point. For us, I think right now we kind of sit in between in who we go after, type of customer, and everything. But pricing is an interesting and sensitive topic ultimately because I think the value is tremendous. But at the end of the day, it comes down to willingness to pay. And sometimes you have cheaper alternatives that they compare you to. And so we've spent some time with our team and say, okay, we have such a broad spectrum of price in our market because you might get one customer who's comparing us to that bigger guy and saying, oh, you guys are cheap. And then we have another customer who will come in comparing us to the lower end and say, oh, you guys are really expensive. And so the narrative changes completely based off of who you're talking to and who they're looking at. And we have to craft the conversations based off of the scenario. But ultimately, we have to show how we're worth twice the cost of someone else, or why we're not necessarily, or why our more expensive competitor is not necessarily 4 times better than us because they're 4 times more expensive. So it's an interesting dynamic kind of being in the middle of the pricing range. But it's something we look at all the time. And some of it is just positioning and how we position ourselves and perception and everything as well. I think that's some of the bigger ones who command that price point is that they're able to do that because they showcase the perception of it and how they sell the value, how they sell why they're that much better and that you're getting what you pay for. And I think it's worked very well for them.
That's great. So we have a question from Phil Walton. Gabe, do you do any work in the healthcare billing segment? There are a lot of small healthcare partnerships that have a lot of issues with billing. Great question.
So not specifically. I think we have a couple, or probably more than a couple, but some customers that are in a healthcare related segment, but they have to be non-HIPAA compliant needed, or they don't need a HIPAA compliant software. We don't focus on that. Obviously not our core category. But we do get a bunch of different field service companies, which is really kind of any mobile service company. And so sometimes you do get something related to it, but not in the same way that you would think of a traditional healthcare.
It could be like a cleaning service for nursing homes.
Yeah, we've seen that. On the more morbid side, we've had a death cleanup company before. I made sure not to go into that account because I didn't want to see what was in there. But yeah, we get everything all over the place. I joke that we get everything from like beehive and swarm removal companies up through those like crazy death cleanup companies, different kind of field service companies. And that's why the market is so large in what we do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do try to narrow our focus a bit, and we do it by a few specific trades and then also similar type of workflows, because in the end, they do sometimes differ a bit. And we can accommodate ones on a different end of the spectrum. But one of the things our sales team has to do is really qualify and make sure people are good fits, because there are millions of these businesses and a lot come in the door. And we can't waste our time with ones that really aren't the right fit, because they will churn.